She saw the headlights slice through the rain, and for a moment felt that simple, profound relief of a journey's end. But the car, a silver sedan she recognized from the app, slowed, paused, and then, like a ghost, simply drove away. The notification on her phone was a quiet, digital slap in the face. Your driver has canceled. The rain fell harder, blurring the streetlights into weeping watercolors. Dr. Alani Vance stood under the flimsy awning of her office building, the chill of the late autumn night seeping into her bones. It wasn't the cold that bothered her, though. It was the familiar, hollow ache of being erased, of being seen and then unseen, weighed, measured, and dismissed in the span of a single, silent glance. Another driver, another judgment. Another night of being too black, too alone, too something for someone's comfort. A flare of anger, hot and sharp, tried to rise in her chest, but she smothered it with a lifetime of practice. Anger was a fire that warmed no one but consumed the person who held it. It was messy, imprecise. Alani didn't do messy. For the past decade, her entire life had been a monument to precision. As a senior data scientist for a leading research institute, she wrestled with chaos for a living, taming it with algorithms, finding clean, undeniable truths in mountains of messy, human data. She built models that predicted outcomes, identified patterns, and exposed biases hidden deep within systems. She looked down at her phone, the screen slick with rain. The canceled ride notification still glowed there. Below it, the driver's profile, a man named Gary smiling in his photo, a 5-star rating gleaming beside his name. The make of the car, a silver Honda Accord, and the license plate clearly visible in the app. Her mind, a machine built for analysis, kicked into gear. The anger receded, replaced by a cold, clear focus. This was no longer an insult. It was a data point, an anomaly that required investigation, a variable in a system that had just produced a flawed, discriminatory result. And Alani Vance knew better than anyone how to correct a flawed system. She didn't shout into the rain. She didn't fire off a furious tweet. She calmly lifted her phone, her fingers moving with steady purpose. With the canceled ride still on the screen, she took a screenshot. She then switched to her camera, and just as the silver Honda turned the corner at the end of the block, she zoomed in. The picture was blurry, streaked with rain, but the license plate was legible. A second screenshot captured her phone's GPS location and the current time. Evidence. Clean, irrefutable, and time-stamped. She opened the ride-share app again, and with the patience of a researcher navigating a complex database, began to move through the menus. Not the generic help section. Not the report a problem with a ride form. She kept digging, her lips a thin, determined line until she found it. Tucked away under layers of corporate jargon and user agreements, a small, rarely used link. Report a violation of our community guidelines and anti-discrimination policy. She tapped it. A blank form appeared. Most people, in a fit of rage, would have filled it with expletives and accusations. Alani began to type, her sentences as clean and objective as an academic abstract. At 10:47 p.m. on Tuesday, November 12th, I requested a ride from my location at 455 Grant Avenue. The assigned driver was Gary C. Attached profile screenshot. Operating a silver Honda Accord, license plate KXD5A3. The application's GPS data will confirm the driver arrived at my location at approximately 1049 p.m. I was standing in a well-lit area, clearly visible. The driver slowed to a stop, made direct eye contact with me, and then, without any communication, canceled the ride and drove away at 1050 p.m. The cancellation reason provided by the driver was, I assume, ride or no show, a claim which is demonstrably false based on your company's own telemetry data. This action constitutes a clear instance of discrimination based on race. Attached, you will find time-stamped, geotagged photographic evidence of the vehicle leaving the scene after the cancellation. I expect a review of this driver's record and a formal response regarding the actions you will take to ensure your platform remains safe and equitable for all users. She attached the files, the screenshot of the app, the photo of the license plate, the screenshot of her location. She read her report over once, checking for typos or emotional language. There was none. It was a perfect, self-contained packet of logic, a bug report for a flaw in the human code. She hit submit. The rain continued to fall. Alani zipped up her coat, the hollow ache now replaced by a quiet, steely sense of purpose. Gary, the driver, probably never gave her a second thought. He was already on his way to his next ride, confident in the anonymity of his small, fleeting act of prejudice. He had no idea he hadn't just canceled on a woman waiting in the rain. He had just become a data point in an analysis being run by a master of the craft. The report landed in a digital queue thousands of miles away, one of 10,000 complaints, queries, and angry messages that flooded the ride-share company's support center every hour. A low-level content moderator, a kid named Ben working a graveyard shift from his apartment in Manila, was the first to see it. His job was to sort and close, to paste canned responses and offer $5 credits. He saw the subject line, formal discrimination complaint, and sighed. These were the worst. He said, she said. Impossible to prove. Standard procedure was to send a boilerplate apology about not meeting our community standards and move on. He opened the ticket. He was about to copy-paste the usual response when something stopped him. The language. It was precise, formal, almost legal. He saw the attachments, screenshots, a photo of a license plate, a reference to telemetry data. This wasn't the usual angry rant. This was different. This was organized. Ben's training included a protocol for escalation. Keywords like lawsuit, media, and discrimination were supposed to be flagged. But there was another, unwritten rule. Flag anything that looks like the user knows what they're doing more than you do. This report felt like that. It felt like a trap. He clicked the Escalate to Tier 2 button. The ticket zipped through the digital ether and landed in another queue, this one managed by the Trust and Safety Team in Austin, Texas. It was assigned to a woman named Maria Flores. Maria was a former paralegal with a sharp eye for detail and a deep-seated cynicism about people. Her desk was littered with the digital debris of human ugliness, fake accident claims, verbal assault recordings, and dozens upon dozens of discrimination complaints. Most, as Ben had assumed, were impossible to verify. A driver's word against a rider's, a messy, unsolvable tangle of accusations. She opened Alani's file. She read the report, her eyebrows rising slightly. This was clean. She opened the attachments. The evidence was pristine. A lesser agent might have stopped there, issued a warning to the driver, and closed the case. But Maria was thorough. She had access to the system's back end, the digital breadcrumbs that told the real story of every ride. She pulled up the ride data for driver ID, Gary 7741. Her screen filled with lines of code and GPS coordinates. 10 hours 47 minutes p.m. Ride requested by user ID, Avance 3. 10 hours 49 minutes 12 seconds p.m. Vehicle arrived at 455 Grant Avenue. GPS data shows vehicle stationary for 41 seconds. 10 hours 49 minutes 53 seconds p.m. Ride canceled by driver. Reason selected. Rider no-show. 10 hours 49 minutes 55 seconds p.m. Vehicle begins moving away from pickup location. Maria leaned back in her chair. The system itself had just proven the driver was lying. The car's GPS placed it at Alani's exact location, stationary, for nearly a minute. A no-show cancellation was only supposed to be possible after a 5-minute wait. Gary had manually overridden the system, choosing a false reason to justify his cancellation. The telemetry data didn't just support Alani's claim, it proved it beyond any reasonable doubt. This was no longer a she said situation. This was a clear, documented violation, gift wrapped with a bow. Maria had seen drivers deactivated for less. But company policy required a direct contact with the driver before permanent action was taken, a chance for them to give their side of the story. She pulled up Gary's contact information and scheduled a call for the following morning. It was just a formality, but it was one she had to follow. She typed a note in the file. Evidence strongly supports user claim. Driver data contradicts cancellation reason. Pending driver contact before final action. Meanwhile, in a quiet suburb across the city, Gary Miller was finishing his shift. He counted his earnings, grumbling about the slow night and the rain. He didn't think about the woman he'd left on the curb. She had already faded from his memory, a fleeting image in his rearview mirror, indistinguishable from a dozen other faces he saw and forgot every day. He'd seen her, standing under the light, and a vague, unexamined feeling had surfaced. That neighborhood, late at night, looks like trouble. It wasn't a thought, really. It was more like a reflex, a prejudice so ingrained he didn't even recognize it as a choice. He'd canceled, picked a random reason, and moved on. There were never any consequences. He parked his car, went inside, and turned on the TV, the small act of discrimination already forgotten. He had no idea that a file with his name on it was now sitting on a desk in Austin, Texas. A silent, digital bomb waiting to detonate his side gig. The system he relied on for his income was now, thanks to one woman's meticulous report, being used to judge him. The phone call came at 9 hours 15 minutes a.m. Gary was drinking coffee, scrolling through the news on his tablet. The number was unfamiliar, but the caller ID said Lyft partner support. He answered, expecting a generic query about a recent ride. "Hello, am I speaking with Gary Miller?" The voice was professional, female, and held no warmth. "Yeah, this is Gary. Mr. Miller, my name is Maria Flores. I'm calling from Lyft's Trust and Safety Department. I'm following up on a complaint filed regarding a ride you canceled last night at 1050 p.m. Gary frowned. He had to rack his brain. Last night, I canceled a few rides. People are never where they say they are. This was a ride requested by a user named Alani at 455 Grant Avenue, Maria said, her tone flat. You canceled the ride and selected the reason rider no-show. Is that correct? Yeah, I think so, Gary said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into his voice. She wasn't there. I waited, she didn't show up, so I canceled. It happens all the time. He was lying, but it was a lie he'd told himself so many times it almost felt true. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Gary could hear the faint click of a keyboard. Mr. Miller, Maria said, her voice now edged with a cool authority. Our system's GPS data shows that your vehicle was stationary at the pickup location for 41 seconds. A no-show cancellation requires a minimum 5-minute wait. Furthermore, the user you claimed was not present provided us with time-stamped photographic evidence of your vehicle driving away from her location immediately after you canceled. Gary's stomach dropped. The coffee in his cup suddenly seemed bitter and acidic. What? That's crazy. She's lying. Our data shows that you are Mr. Miller, Maria stated, her voice unequivocal. The user, a black woman, filed a formal complaint alleging that you canceled the ride after seeing her, an act of discrimination that is in direct violation of our company's non-discrimination policy and the terms of your agreement as a driver. He was speechless. He remembered her now, the woman in the dark coat. The way she'd stepped forward, he had seen her, he had judged her. And he had driven away. He never imagined she could fight back, not like this, not with evidence. It was dark. It was raining. I didn't feel safe, he stammered, throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping something would stick. The location is a well-lit commercial district, and the user was standing directly under a streetlight, Maria countered, her voice like a prosecutor reading from a file. You made eye contact with her, you saw her, and you chose to cancel. The excuses died in his throat. There was nowhere to run. The system he thought was anonymous had recorded his every move. The person he thought was powerless had used that very system against him with the precision of a surgeon. Mr. Miller, Maria said, her voice now carrying the weight of a final judgment. Due to the irrefutable evidence of a safety policy violation, specifically discrimination against a user based on race, and for falsifying the reason for cancellation, we are permanently deactivating your account, effective immediately. What? Permanent? He sputtered. You can't do that. I have a 5-star rating. Your rating is irrelevant when a foundational policy is violated, Maria said calmly. You will receive a formal notification via email. Thank you for your time. She hung up. Gary stared at his phone, the dial tone buzzing in his ear. He felt a wave of disbelief, followed by a hot surge of rage, not at himself, but at the woman who had done this. How could she? It was just one ride, a feeling he had. But the rage quickly curdled into a cold, sickening fear. He had been so sure, so confident in his small, private act of prejudice. He never once considered that the world had tools for people like her, people who knew how to use them. Alani received the email that afternoon. It was from Maria Flores at the Trust and Safety Department. It wasn't the standard, vague apology she had expected. It was different. Dear Dr. Vance, thank you for your detailed report regarding your experience on November 12th. We have completed our investigation. The evidence you provided, in conjunction with our own internal telemetry data, confirmed a clear violation of our anti-discrimination policy by the driver in question. We want to assure you that we have taken definitive and permanent action in this matter. While we cannot share the specific details of the actions taken against the driver due to privacy policies, we can confirm that this individual will no longer be driving on our platform. We are deeply sorry that you had this experience. It is unacceptable and does not represent the community we are trying to build. We have added $200 in ride credits to your account, but we understand that this does not undo the harm of the incident. Your report has also been flagged for our policy review team as a case study in how to effectively document and respond to these situations. Your clarity and evidence were instrumental in our ability to take swift and decisive action. Sincerely, Maria Flores' trust and safety team lead Alani read the email twice. A slow, quiet satisfaction settled over her. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the driver being fired. It was about the validation. Her data had been clean. Her analysis had been correct. The system had, for once, produced the right outcome. She hadn't just been heard. She had been proven right, her grievance legitimized not by emotion, but by cold, hard facts. She took a screenshot of the email, dragged it into a folder on her computer labeled correspondence, and archived it. The file was closed. A few days later, Alani stood on another street corner, the night air crisp and clear. She opened the app on her phone. She hesitated for only a fraction of a second, a phantom echo of the rain and the sting of dismissal. Then, her resolve hardened. She would not let one man's prejudice dictate her movement in the world. She requested a ride. A minute later, a small blue car pulled up to the curb. The driver, a young woman with a kind smile, leaned over and rolled down the passenger window. "For Alani?" she asked cheerfully. Alani smiled back, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. "That's me," she said, and opened the door. She got in, the car pulling smoothly into traffic. She looked out the window at the passing city lights, at the thousands of anonymous faces moving through the night. She knew that prejudice hadn't been vanquished. She knew that what happened to Gary was just one small correction in a vast, flawed system. But it was a correction she had made. And it was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful protest isn't a shout. Sometimes it is simply a perfectly documented report, sent quietly into the night, carrying the undeniable weight of the truth.